heroes, hijinks, and hacking. This is Dispatch. Quick housekeeping first regarding spoilers. As always with heavy story games, we're being careful with what we show. We love going in blind and we respect your decision to do that as well. If you're still worried about what you might see, then just listen to this. And if you're even still worried after that, there's a written version of this over on the website. Cool? Excellent. This review covers the first 2 episodes of Dispatch, Pivot and Onboard. We have access to the first 4, and we are allowed to give a small overview of the first half. We're not specifically allowed to talk about episodes 3 and 4, but we here now are solely focusing on Pivot and Onboard. We haven't played 3 or 4 yet, because we want to talk about how good or bad Pivot and Onboard are, and that's going to impact your odds if you even stick around for episodes 3 or 4. Make sense? Cool. With that out of the way, let's talk crime fighting. I'm a sucker for superheroes, and as such, Dispatch was a game that jumped out at me from the moment it was shown off back at the Game Awards 2024. There's something interesting to me about stories set in a superhero world that take a ever so slightly different angle than just following the hero and watching them fight crime or go to space. Grant Morrison once said that if you give an adult fiction, they start asking really dumb questions. Like, who pumps the Batmobile's tires? And no one cares about such things. Of course, if you're a real nerd, then you know that the answer is Harold, the hunchback, who lives in the Batcave. Shout out to Harold. How do superheroes decide which crimes to stop? Dispatch sees you taking on the role of Robert Robertson III. Perfect name, comic book alliteration, and everything in there. Robert is the once great Mecha Man, and now has been relegated to working for the SDN, Superhero Dispatch Network, after a tragic accident happens very, very, very early on in the game, and he loses his suit. This isn't a spoiler, that's obviously a thing. It's a thankless job that sees you working as a call center operator. Your role is the linchpin of a successful superhero team. When a cat gets stuck in a tree, you need to make sure you send a hero that can fly or climb, who's able to do the job. I mean, you could always send that 3-foot 8-inch tall strongman, but how it's going to go might be a bit squiffy. Just like heroes and their alter egos, there are 2 sides to Dispatch. The first, and the one that takes up a solid section of the first episode, is an interactive TV show akin to something like Wolf Among Us or any Telltale game. You see it play out, you make choices that then impact how it flows. It's important branching choices throughout it that then impact what's going on in the world around you. At some point in the episode though, it's time for work. And then the game shifts into something resembling more of an actual game. There is something else that I'm going to asterisk here. We'll come back to it in just a little bit, don't worry. When you log into the SDN computers, you're greeted by a screen that is very reminiscent of This Is the Police, if you've ever played it or seen it. It's a section of Los Angeles laid out before you on a computer screen, and it's going to slowly have alerts and situations that you need to respond to. They're going to pop up and you're going to click on them, and then you'll be greeted by a request from someone calling into the network. Carjackings, muggings, rich people needing a few heroes for a meet and greet. I mean, SDN are running a business after all. Each mission will give you a vague idea of the tasks required. They'll tell you, oh, they need to be able to bolster themselves, or they need to get there fast. And then it's your job to select the right misfits from your team to handle that job based on their stats. Of course, certain other problems are going to arise, and that will require you to adapt or make choices that are then going to change how things play out. The job will then complete, you'll succeed or fail, and the heroes return back to base for a well-deserved rest before you can send them out again. Dispatch also has, for some reason, included a hacking minigame. You move a node across a grid, you punch in some Helldiver-style combo codes, you collect information, and Bob's your uncle. Again, simple and effective. There is more depth going on here than it first seems when it comes to your hero team and their selections though. Heroes will level up, they're going to allow you to increase their stats, and you'll eventually start unlocking passive abilities for each of those heroes that will then influence how they tackle tasks. There are other things that I know happen later that I can't talk about as well. The main problem with the gameplay, though, is that over the course of the first 2 episodes, there just isn't much of it. You see, it took us just over 47 minutes to complete the first episode, Pivot, during which there was just over 11 minutes of tutorial regarding the dispatching mechanic and systems. And that was it. The second episode is a bit more evenly balanced between story and game, but given that the demo that is available to the public focuses on a gameplay section and shows pretty much the gameplay from episode 2, it does raise concerns about what players are expecting when they're going into this versus what they're going to get. You see, during the story sections, you can opt to turn on quick time events. It's going to make it more interactive. You can forgo those if you want and choose a more cinematic TV episode approach. The unfortunate issue is that the QuickTime events seem to work the same way that letting your younger sibling play with an unplugged controller does. Now, we tested the QTEs by running through a section 3 different ways. We ran it through in cinematic mode with the QTEs turned off. We then ran through it with them turned on and succeeding at all of them. And then finally we tried running through with them turned on and failing at all of them. There was zero difference that we could notice. Not just in the final outcome after the QTEs, but in the moment to moment as well. This might of course be different in later episodes, but they kind of give the illusion of influence at the start. Why would you think it would be any different later on if that's how it works at the beginning? And I get it, there are some players who are going to maybe enjoy this aspect, because some of the ones at the beginning are things like you get to drag down on the screen to have Robert pull his mask over his face. Great, but if you don't have the quick times turned on, Robert is still going to pull the mask down over his face. And if you fail the quick time, he's not going to mess up putting the mask on. He's still just going to pull the mask down over his face. Anyway, QTEs aside, the story, while slow to get off the ground and being a tad predictable in the offset, is not only enjoyable, but it's bolstered by the incredible performances of the cast. I want to give a special shout out to Charlie Moist Critical White, who voices Sonar the Bat. His character is just fantastic. The structure is also very clearly trying to replicate that episodic TV show feel. You get intro credits, you get outro credits, you even get a little song at the end when the credits start rolling for the end of the episode. And the way that the episodes are laid out plot structure-wise is kind of apparent if you've ever watched something and paid attention. Pivot, the first episode, sets up our main character. It allows you to connect with him. It gives you background on him. And then, Onboard, the second episode, shifts and allows you to see him adapting to his new situation. It allows you to be introduced to the supporting cast and sets up friendships and rivalries accordingly. The concern for me comes from the amount of runway left. You see, Dispatch is an 8-episode release, and that means that we're 25% of the way through it with those 2 episodes, and if the remaining 6 episodes are of a similar length, then the gameplay either needs to start linking closer to the story, or the episodes need to start extending in length. There is something that plays out in one of those 2 episodes that is very clearly tied to gameplay, but it's handled in such a way that it's not really to do with the layout of you clicking an icon and choosing who to send out to this mission. And I'm very curious to see how that system attaches to the story system later down the line. You see, the problem is that if it doesn't connect in a satisfying way, we're going to end up with a situation where we're left either wanting more gameplay than we get, or the story is going to have to rush, and that's going to weaken a few points. And that's just kind of a messy situation to be in. It's juggling these 2 things, and the balance just doesn't feel quite right yet. Our stance at this point is honestly, wait a week. So you have 4 episodes. That's half the season to play with rather than just the first 2 episodes. The other option is, of course, that the first 2 episodes, as I'm about to mention, are only going to take you 100 minutes. That means that if you're on something like Steam, you can refund it if you're unhappy with how the game is laid out after those 2 episodes. You can get a taste for it and either then choose to support or choose to not. That's your choice as a consumer. Anyway, the first 2 episodes are good enough. With the first being devoted to setup though, it means that if you wait for 4 episodes to play through back to back, you're going to have more of the game to sink your teeth into. And personally, I think that would work better if this game was released in 2 packs, first half and second half. But I get the kind of Amazon, Apple TV theme of like what they're going for here with 2 episodes a week. Bam, 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 bam. Right. Where does this all leave us? Dispatch will cost $30 for the standard version, and it will give you access to the first 2 episodes this week, 2 more then following each week after, with the whole season of 8 episodes concluding on November 12th. The first 2 episodes combined, as I just mentioned, took us around 100 minutes. So if you are on something like Steam, then you can try them out, and you're under that threshold. If you're happy with it, brilliant, you have 3 more weeks of game coming your way. That's more than you could ask for. Each episode can also be replayed and has achievements for certain choices attached to them. There is that replayability, but I will say that I think that replayability is going to be more impactful and give you a better setup once you have the whole season so that you can make those choices and see how they actually play out. Because if you play through it and then play through it again and you only have those first 2 episodes, then that's going to get a bit messy. With more episodes of Dispatch releasing weekly, we're going to have to see how the full game ends up taking shape. As of right now, there are strong points to like about Dispatch, mixed in with a few strange choices, like the needless QTE system that you can just toggle off and make it more enjoyable, in my opinion, and the weirdly, incredibly annoying profanity filter. There's a lot of swearing in this game, and turning that on instead of replacing the words with PG-13 words just bleeps them, which means you can end up turning entire sentences into just a series of beeps. And sure, that's great for accessibility and player choice, but it just kind of ends up showcasing how at times Dispatch can feel like a collection of different heroes all fighting for themselves rather than a unified team. At the end of the day, I think time will tell if Dispatch can nail that landing and bring everything together.